There's a very funny and very stupid thing that happens when you decide to make things regularly, or even just make things seriously. Usually you imagine inspiration as this mysterious glowing force, or at least I did. I used to picture myself waking up, drinking coffee, sitting down at the desk, and being guided by something elegant. Maybe the muse arrives, maybe the daimon, maybe the spirit. Maybe the idea descends from the heavens in a beam of light and says, "Hello, idiot. I've brought you today's episode." That's happened to me maybe like 3 times. Most of the time, my actual creative director is my spine. My real producer is chronic pain. And I wish I meant that in a cool, mythological way. I don't mean I'm sitting in a candlelit room like some tragic artist, turning suffering into gold while a violin plays in the distance. I mean, I think what I'm trying to say is that my body will literally interrupt whatever I'm doing just to tell me, "Okay, buddy, we're changing positions now." I mean, I'll be halfway through recording a sentence and the nerves on one side of my body start getting these notifications from hell. I mean, usually my ribs start screaming, the sides of my head start hurting, my stomach gets weird because my discs are irritated, and suddenly the episode isn't being produced by me. It's being produced by whatever twisted committee of angry, inflamed tissues live inside me. So today's episode is called "Chronic Pain is My Producer," because that is really what it feels like. It chooses the chair, the angle, how long I end up sitting. It chooses when I have to stop, or even when I start. It chooses whether my voice sounds normal or, like one of the very clever Spotify comments said, sounds like I'm farting. I don't know why I had to tell you that, but I did. Usually my chronic pain has notes and opinions and gives me really bad feedback. It's always in the studio, always in my room, and it never clocks out. And I can tell you it doesn't seem interested in revenue sharing at all. So yeah, I have nerve pain on one side of my body. That sentence sounds very simple when I say it like that. It almost sounds too tidy. Nerve pain on one side of my body. Very medical, very organized. My actual experience is kind of the opposite. It's more like one side of my body is living its own life, completely separate from me. And it's going through some really weird things. Some days it feels sharp, other days electric. Some days dull and heavy, like someone poured concrete directly into my spinal column. One of the best ways to describe it is like it feels like there's a line of fire going through my body. But then there's other days where it's more like static, if that makes sense. Like old TV static from a channel that you can't tune properly. And I know a lot of people won't get that, but it's like it's always there in some form, even when I'm doing something else. One of the most frustrating things about chronic pain is that it doesn't always seem to appear as pain. Sometimes it's my mood or my impatience. Sometimes it's my brain fog. Some days it's kind of gross. It's like this weird lack of generosity toward the world, where every tiny inconvenience suddenly feels like it's a personal attack. Like a normal person drops a spoon and just picks it up. A person in pain drops a spoon, and like me, has a brief philosophical crisis about why they keep dropping things, people, emotions. It's kind of messed up. So, I've had 2 laminectomies, which is such an ugly word. Laminectomy. It sounds like something you do in a dungeon with a bone saw. Anyway, for anyone who doesn't know, a laminectomy is spine surgery. In my case, 2 of them. And spine surgery is one of those things where people hear it and they understand it intellectually, but I don't think people really understand how strange it is to live afterward unless they've been through something like it. Your body has been opened in a very serious place. Your nervous system has been touched. Everything about the way you perceive reality ends up becoming different. After that, you're still you, but the building has had construction done. There are rooms you can still enter, but there are other rooms that you have to enter carefully. There are staircases that used to be normal and now make weird noises. There are parts of the wiring that flicker for no reason. You can still live in the house, but you're very aware that renovations happened. And for me, pain has become this background manager of my entire life. It's not always the main story, but it does keep editing it. One of the most annoying things about this kind of pain is how rarely it stays in one place. People think, okay, your back hurts. That must mean your back hurts. I wish it were that polite. When my discs are irritated, my whole system starts falling apart. The back gets involved, then the ribs, then my head, then the stomach, sometimes my left eye. It's like a group chat. Nobody needed to spread the news, but now the entire body is having a meeting. I get headaches, I get stomach issues. I feel like I'm getting uppercutted in the ribs constantly, but I guess that's just the price I pay. It's such a specific pain too, where pain has this weird personality. It's petty almost. It makes things like breathing feel dramatic and turns sitting into such a big deal. It makes lying down feel like such a complicated process. Like 10 minutes after I lay down, I'm still thinking about it. The stomach stuff, especially weird because it reminds you that the body isn't divided into clean departments the way we talk about it. Back pain isn't just back pain. Nerve irritation is not just nerve irritation. One part of the body gets upset, and suddenly your digestion is acting like it's received disturbing news. That's one of the reasons I think chronic pain is so hard to explain to people. It spreads through your life in these indirect ways. You're always trying to say, my back is bad today, but what you really mean is, my head hurts, my stomach is off, my rib is tight, I'm irritated by light, I don't trust my own mood, and I hate t-shirts today. That's a lot to put in a casual text. So usually I just say, yeah, my back is kind of acting up. And then I try to continue being a normal person. Or at least I attempt to. So recently I finally ordered a comfortable chair. Now, I know this may not sound like a major life event to you, but for me it is. I've been waiting for this chair like people were waiting for the Rapture last year, remember? Or was that this year? I think it was last year. I don't know. 2026 Rapture or 2025 Rapture? Maybe both years. I feel like there's always a Rapture happening. I keep checking the tracking as if the chair is bringing medicine and prophecy. I've become like emotionally invested in the updates they give me. But somewhere out there, a chair is traveling toward me. And I'm trying not to place too much spiritual significance on it, but I have absolutely placed too much spiritual significance on it. It's just something I do. To me, there's something very funny about reaching a point in your life where the most exciting thing you've purchased is support. I didn't get a new camera or jacket or a new mic. I got a chair, a comfortable chair. I think lumbar support becomes a life goal after a certain age and pain level. I don't think there's any way around it. You start looking at product photos thinking, yeah, the person who made this chair really gets sitting. They definitely understand. And for me, it's not even about luxury. I think that's the part a lot of people overlook. This isn't like some treat for me when I have chronic pain. It's part of my job. If I'm gonna write, record, edit, talk to therapy clients, or do any of the things that make my life possible, my body has to be placed in a position where it doesn't immediately just hate itself. I used to think creativity was mostly about ideas, but I think it's also about ergonomics. I know it's not super inspiring, but it feels true. The mystical path seems to include learning which chair doesn't make your ribs feel like they're being pulled out one at a time. There's probably an ancient teaching about this somewhere. A monk sitting under a tree reached enlightenment only after he found the right cushion. We like to focus on the enlightenment part, but we forget the cushion. I think I understand the cushion now, honestly. I need it. There is another weird thing that happens when I sit up straight or stand up straight. Because of this issue after my surgery, there was something went wrong during the surgery. When I'm upright, my breathing gets strange. The best way I can describe it is that my sternum does this little stutter. My lungs will take the breath, but then my sternum or chest area keeps contracting a few extra times, almost like little aftershocks. It feels like my body is doing more breathing movements than I'm actually breathing. So I'm sitting there trying to talk, and my chest is doing its own rhythm underneath the sentence. It feels pretty strange. It also makes me speak differently when I'm upright. My voice can get tighter, my rhythm changes. I can sound like I'm forcing words through a strange mechanical interruption, I guess. And the annoying thing is that I'm often, more than often, mentally fine. The thought and sentence are there and I know what I want, and the body adds this weird little stutter. I guess an instrument is probably the best way to describe it. The body being the instrument. If the instrument is warped, then the music comes out differently. And I've had to make peace with that in a very practical way. There are days where I can speak more easily if I'm reclined. There are other days where sitting straight makes me sound different. There are also days where recording becomes less about the idea and more about the angle of my torso. I know that's ridiculous, but it's how I live my life. This is why chronic pain is my producer. It looks at the setup and says, no, move the mic, lean back, try again. That sentence was good, but your ribs have decided you need 10 more takes. I don't really get to be precise about it. I would love to have a perfect studio posture. I just straightened my back out as I said that. I would love to be someone who sits up, and I am sitting upright right now. My back is straight, my neck is tucked, my shoulders aren't rolled forward. But I would love to be one of those people who sits upright with a beautifully aligned spine, speaking calmly into a microphone like an architect. Like this is what they were meant to do. But when I sit up too straight, like right now, my breathing gets weird. My sternum starts doing its own little dance. And suddenly I sound like I'm having Wi-Fi issues. So I try my best to adapt. That's what chronic pain teaches more than anything else, I think. Adaptation. In a very annoying, unglamorous way. Pain changes the size of the day. A normal day has hours in it. A pain day has positions. There's the position where you can think, the position where you can answer messages, the position where I can record, the position where I can pretend I'm fine around other people. And of course, my favorite, the position where you give up and become one with the blanket. The day gets divided by what the body allows. And I think this is where most people misunderstand chronic pain. They think pain is just the physical sensation, but it's also this kind of invisible force that shapes scheduling, finances, creativity. It even ends up shaping your personality if you're not careful. Pain ends up deciding whether you go out, whether you cook, or whether you make the long version of an episode or a short version. It decides whether I can sit at the desk or if I have to work from a ridiculous half-reclined goblin posture that would concern anyone if they saw it. And after a while, I suppose, you start developing two versions of every plan. There's the plan I want, and there's the plan my body might allow. The gap there is where a lot of my problems and grief lives. Obviously, I'm not trying to be dramatic. The grief is sometimes just tiny. The small disappointment of having to stop early. The weird sadness of realizing you can't sit at a cafe for as long as you wanted. The frustration of losing a clean, amazing thought because a nerve flare-up hijacked your attention. The embarrassment of sounding strange because my breathing pattern is off. And the anger of needing to consider pain before making basic decisions. There's also the grief of becoming high maintenance to yourself. That one is really tricky to explain. I don't just need a chair, I need the right chair. I don't just need rest, I need the right kind of rest, in the right position and at the right time, before the pain crosses some invisible line and turns the next 3 days into damage control. You end up understanding that your body has terms and conditions. And we know nobody reads the terms and conditions until something goes wrong. Now, because this is Idiot Mystic, I should probably say something spiritual here. But I have to be really careful with that, because chronic pain is one of those topics where people love to get spiritually annoying. People have said such stupid things to me, like, your pain is your teacher. Okay, maybe. But could the teacher stop punching me in the spine? I understand the idea. I really do. Pain can teach you and humble you and I guess make you more compassionate and even force you to slow down. All of that can and has been true for me. But it can also just suck. And we should be allowed to say that without immediately turning it into a motivational poster. Pain doesn't have to be beautiful to be meaningful. And pain doesn't have to be meaningful every second for you to survive it. Some days pain is just like a rude house guest, knocking everything over and making it hard to think. The wisdom, for me, comes later. It comes after the flare, which by the way I'm having one right now. After the anger, after the ridiculous bargaining with pillows, after the 15th adjustment of the chair that still hasn't arrived. Because apparently the current chair is my penance for all the things I've done in my life. And eventually, somewhere in the middle of all of that, I notice something. The body is telling the truth. It's not really poetic or in the way I enjoy, but it is telling the truth about limits and stress and your own posture. It's telling the truth about how much I'm pretending and how much force I'm using to do things that might require more gentleness. I can say the body is very annoying because it doesn't care about your persona. It doesn't care how productive you want it to be or how tough you used to be. It doesn't care that you have a brand or a plan or a thumbnail or an audience. The body cares about the body. That can feel like betrayal when you're used to pushing through everything. I mean, myself, I come from a world where pushing through was praised. Fighting, training, cutting weight, performing, working. You learn to override signals and you keep going. You start treating the discomfort as background noise and at first it's not that bad. But then one day, the background noise becomes the whole room and you end up having to learn a different language. I know I've been going for long and I'm in pain right now, but I don't know. I guess I'm just gonna keep talking. It's almost time to pray. I mean, when I'm recording this, but I mean, you could pray now. Never mind. I don't know what I'm saying. There is a particular stupidity that comes from having been an athlete or a fighter. You get very good at ignoring pain. This can be useful in a ring, but terrible in life. Because the skill that once helped you survive pressure can become the skill that prevents you from taking care of yourself. I started treating every signal like something to conquer. So every limit ended up becoming suspicious, and resting started feeling like I had lost something. And someone asking if I needed support was the biggest insult possible. Then chronic pain enters. And chronic pain doesn't negotiate with who you say you are. It doesn't care that you used to train hard. It doesn't care that you've been hit, choked out, exhausted, and still kept going. It has no respect for how many wins you have. That was humbling for me. There is a version of me that still wants to treat pain like an opponent. Figure it out, game plan, beat it, and prove something. But chronic pain is not a person across from you. It's not a fight with rounds and a bell and a referee. It's just your own nervous system. You can't defeat your own nervous system by declaring war on it every morning. Trust me, I've tried. The nervous system was always unimpressed. So the practice became a lot weirder and much less melodramatic. It's not really overcoming the pain, but trying to figure out under what conditions life is still possible. I know it doesn't sound too grand, but it's probably healthier. Can I record lying back a little? Can I edit in shorter sessions? Can I stop treating a comfortable chair like a luxury item and start treating it as basic equipment? Can I admit that my breathing gets weird upright without making it into a whole identity crisis? Can I let the episode sound like the body that made it? That last one hurts me a lot because there's this pressure to sound polished all the time, clean and smooth and consistent, like a person with perfect posture and perfect lungs and perfect planning. But that's not what this episode is. This episode is coming from the body I actually have. The more I think about the title, the more accurate it feels. Chronic pain is my producer. I know it's not the artist or the writer, and it's definitely not the boss, although it tries to act like it. But it is always in the room and does shape the final product. A producer affects the conditions. For me, it affects everything. The budget, the schedule, the available takes, the length of the session, the tone. Chronic pain affects all of that. There are episodes I make because I'm in pain and need to understand what's happening to me. There are episodes I record differently because of pain. There are jokes that only exist because the situation is so physically stupid that I either laugh or turn into a chair-obsessed sicko. There are pauses in my speech that aren't artistic. I'm just adjusting to being in a body. And maybe that's okay. Maybe part of making honest work is letting the conditions show a little. I don't want everything to be cleaned up until it sounds like it came from nowhere. I don't want Idiot Mystic to be some sterile thing where the person making it disappears behind a perfect voice and perfect sentences. The whole point is that this is made by a human being with a weird life, a strange body, too many spiritual problems, and I guess a very, very touchy ribcage. I keep thinking about how many people are making things from imperfect conditions. Sick bodies, grief, anxiety, weird family situations, kids, noise, bills, bodies that keep interrupting. And yet, the work keeps getting made. It's not always elegant or timely, and it's not always with the posture recommended by wellness influencers, but it does get made. And I guess that's all that's important, right? Because I think a lot of people wait for the perfect, clean beginning. I know I did. The perfect desk, the perfect health, the perfect season of life where the body behaves, the mind is clear, and the world finally gives you a quiet room. I'm suspicious of that room, because I've been waiting for it for years. The room keeps changing, and my body keeps being my body. I'll just say life keeps arriving with a bag full of poop. So at some point, you just make the thing from inside the mess. I think it's kind of funny how much maintenance a human body requires, especially when you have chronic pain. You become a mechanic for a vehicle you definitely didn't design, can't replace, and barely understand. You start thinking in absurdly specific categories, like this pillow is good for the neck, but bad for the ribs. This chair is okay for 20 minutes, but that chair is good for 50. This position helps the nerve pain, but apparently makes my voice sound like I'm farting. It's all so specific. This walk might help, unless it doesn't, in which case I've just taken my pain outside for some air. Sometimes that's good. But it's also specific, and nobody sees most of it. That's another hidden part of chronic pain. Most of the work is completely invisible. All the rearranging and calculating and small decisions. The way you scan a room for seating before you even realize you're doing it. And the way you think about the drive, the chair, the standing, and the recovery afterward. People see the output, but they don't see the weird little engineering project behind it. Even with this podcast, there's the episode people hear, and then there's the physical puzzle of making the episode. How long can I sit? What angle lets me breathe normally? How do I hold my body so the ribs calm down? Do I record now or wait? Is the headache coming from the neck, the back, the screen, or maybe that ancient curse my mom keeps talking about? That's not a thing I made up, by the way. There's an actual curse. It could be all of them. We just keep moving. One of the harder parts for me is the voice thing, because this is audio. My voice is the bridge. So when my breathing gets weird and I talk strangely upright, it messes with a lot more than just my comfort. It touches what I'm doing. It affects how I communicate, because it's affecting the exact place where my inner world is becoming external. That feels vulnerable in a very specific and uncomfortable way. A limp is visible, and a scar can be explained. But a weird breathing pattern while speaking is different. You can feel trapped between wanting to explain it and not wanting to turn every recording or conversation into a medical footnote. So I guess I'll explain it once, as clearly as I can. When I sit or stand upright, because of the issue connected to my surgeries, my sternum sometimes contracts in the stuttering way. It's uncomfortable and strange, and makes my speech sound uneven. I talk differently depending on the position I'm in, like quite drastically differently. That's part of the reality behind the voice, and honestly, it seems like a good idea to tell you. There's relief in naming the weird thing. A lot of chronic pain is trying to name weird things without sounding insane. Like, my ribs hurt because my back is irritated and my stomach is also involved and my breathing is strange when I sit upright. That sentence sounds like a conspiracy theory, right? But inside the body, it all makes sense. It's connected. So where does the spiritual part come in? For me, it's not about pretending pain is secretly wonderful. And it's definitely not about becoming great. It's definitely not about becoming grateful for every symptom like some deranged gratitude person. I guess attention is the spiritual part. Pain tends to force attention. It makes it very hard to live entirely in abstraction. You can try to escape into thoughts and fantasies and research rabbit holes, but then a nerve fires and suddenly you're back in the body. Back in the breath, in the chair, in the ribs. Back in the exact moment you were hoping to avoid. That's really frustrating, but it's also real practice. Because meditation is easy to romanticize when the body is calm. Sit, breathe, observe. Very beautiful, very clean. Maybe a little bell rings. Maybe everyone feels peaceful. Wonderful. Then try observing a body that feels like it's breaking down. That's a different practice. Can I be present with this without becoming only this? Can I respond without spiraling? Can I care for the body without turning the whole day into fear? Can I make something honest without using pain as a costume? That's the thought that always stands out to me. I don't want to perform suffering or decorate it, but I also don't want to hide the fact that it shapes my entire life. So I'm trying to talk about it plainly. There's pain, creativity, there's a chair in the mail, there's rib pain, there are headaches, there's nerve pain, there's the breathing thing. There's still work to do. And somehow, this is my life. And I keep coming back to the chair because it's such a perfect symbol for where I am. I'm waiting for support to arrive. Literally. I think that's funny, and a little too on the nose. Somewhere in the mail, there's a chair that may or may not improve my life by 15%. I'm trying not to make it a messiah. It is furniture. But when you're in pain, small improvements feel huge. A better chair can mean a longer recording session, a cleaner thought, a less irritated disc, a day that ends with slightly more energy left. So important to me, because I know people love big transformations, total healing, and radical change, the dramatic before and after. Chronic pain often gives you tiny engineering wins. It could be a better chair, a better pillow, a different mic angle, a 20-minute break before the flare-up gets worse, a way to record while leaning back. All of these wins count. I know they're not glamorous, but they really do count. And a lot of adult life is learning to respect the unglamorous thing that keeps you alive. Water, sleep, a chair, a meal that doesn't start a stomach rebellion, the humility to stop before the body forces you to stop. That's where I am right now, waiting for a chair, trying to make episodes, negotiating with the weird producer in the room. I think pain has changed how I make things. It's made me a lot less interested in fake intensity. There was a time when I believed that great work required a storm, staying up all night, destroying yourself for the art, pushing, bleeding, all that nonsense. I still understand intensity, and I still love it in certain ways. But chronic pain has made me pretty suspicious of the version of creativity that treats the body like disposable equipment. The body seems like more than just the thing carrying the brain to the microphone. The body is a part of the microphone. The voice and rhythm and patience come from the body. The ability to stay with an idea long enough to make it good comes from a nervous system that hasn't been completely fried. So I'm learning to produce differently. Shorter sessions, more breaks, a lot less pretending. More honesty about what the recording day actually is. And maybe that will make the work better. Not necessarily higher quality, but at least more real. I think people can feel when something is made from a real place, even if the audio isn't perfect and the voice has a strange rhythm. Even if the person making it seems overly fixated on a chair. I think the realness gets through. At least I hope it does. If you're listening to this with your own weird body situation, I see you. And I don't mean that in the internet way where everything has to become a slogan. I mean, I know there are probably things you're managing that nobody sees. You might have a pain that changes your mood before you even know it's happened. You could be tired of explaining symptoms that sound unrelated but are obviously connected inside your actual lived experience. You might have even become an expert in pillows, heating pads, stretches, and the exact emotional damage caused by sitting on that wooden rocking chair. Okay, that was too specific. That's just me. You might also be grieving a version of yourself that could just do things without negotiating. That grief is very potent. I think it deserves more respect than people give it. Because when you live with chronic pain, you're constantly adjusting to loss at a small scale. The loss of ease, spontaneity, and confidence in the body. The loss of the simple assumption that you can make a plan and your body will show up for it. And still, people keep living. People still make art, raise kids, study, pray, build weird little podcasts on the internet, order chairs, wait for chairs, become emotionally dependent on said chairs. I've pushed the chair thing too far. I'm gonna stop. Human beings are ridiculous, though, and durable. And that combination is probably why I still have faith in us. I think part of me wanted to make this episode because I'm tired of pretending the production conditions are separate from the work itself. They're not. The pain is in the room. The chair is in the room, or technically not in the room yet, which is the problem. The surgical history is here, and so is the nerve pain, the headaches, the breathing, all of it is here. And I'm here too. And that's what this is all about. Because pain can become so loud that you start to feel like it is your whole identity, your entire story, your whole person. It isn't. It's a producer, a very controlling producer with terrible boundaries, but it's not the entire artist. We still get to make decisions, to laugh and record. I still get to say, this is the situation today, so this is how we're making this thing. Maybe that's the most honest creative practice I have right now. Not just continuing to wait for the clean, painless version of myself, or waiting till I can sit perfectly upright and breathe like a normal person. I'm just gonna make it from here. From this chair until the better chair arrives. From this body with all its weird wiring. From this breath, even when the sternum stutters. From this pain, without letting it have the final cut. So yes, chronic pain is my producer. I've said that way too many times. But it gives notes I didn't ask for, changes the schedule, and ruins takes. It makes me spend way too much time thinking about chairs. But somehow, the episode still gets made. Maybe that's the whole point. Not triumph or defeat. Just the weird, stubborn act of making something anyway. And if this episode sounds a little different, or breathes a little differently, or moves at the pace of a person trying to talk to his own ribcage, then good. That's the truth of it. This one was produced by Chronic Pain, I guess spoken by me, and approved by my spine, and hopefully, very soon, supported by a chair that is currently on the way. Thank you for being here with me in my pain, and thank you for listening to Idiot Mystic. Please take care of your body as much as you can, and if your body is being difficult today, I hope you find one small adjustment that makes the day a little more possible, even if it's just a better chair, especially if it's a better chair. I think I'm gonna go puke now. Bye.